Samar Island is the third largest island in the Philippines and has one of the most extensive forest over limestone ecosystems in the country. This ecosystem is home to a wide array of uniquely adapted flora and fauna. Samar Island is known to be one of the centers of botanical diversity in the Philippines and has been nominated as a UNESCO World Natural Heritage Site for its exceptional natural beauty and precious biodiversity. For these reasons, Conserve Kaigangan, a biodiversity research program, was established. Kaigangan is a Samar local word that means forest over limestone. Our research program's mission is to assess and conserve the biodiversity in Samar Island's forest over limestone towards its sustainable management. One of our program's projects is the assessment of biodiversity and community structure in forest over limestone ecosystems. This component of our research aims to determine plant diversity and vegetation structure and various habitat types in forests over limestone, to determine animal diversity associated with forest over limestone, to identify functional classification of vegetation with its associated animal diversity, and to analyze the environmental factors influencing the prevailing structure of the biota. We conducted a comprehensive biodiversity assessment of forests over limestone in the municipalities of Paranas, Taft, and Giwan with remarkable findings. A combined total of 71 plant species were recorded from these municipalities, with at least 3 tree species classified as vulnerable based on the DENR updated national list of threatened Philippine plants. A total of 52 terrestrial vertebrate animal species were also recorded, including 5 amphibian species, 15 reptile species, 20 bird species, and 12 mammal species, with conservation statuses ranging from threatened to endangered and critically endangered, based on the DENR updated national list of threatened Philippine fauna. This knowledge will empower our stakeholders in these areas to make appropriate research-based conservation efforts for the protection of these ecosystems that harbor an assemblage of rare, endemic, and economically important flora and fauna. Through this program, people will be equipped with knowledge on forests over limestone biodiversity, including the ecosystem services that it can offer to the community. We at Conserve Kaigangan continue to further raise awareness and capacitate national and local government agencies, especially local communities, living in and around Samars Kaigangan.
Okay, good morning, everyone. We apologize for our some technical difficulties that we had earlier. So again, welcome back to our Kaigangan Biodiversity Webinar Series 2025, and thank you for joining us today on our fourth webinar episode. And I am Anne, and I will be your host for today. So earlier, when we had a little bit of technical difficulties, Assistant Professor Lani Masungsong already greeted some of our participants. So welcome here on Zoom, and for those who are watching us via Facebook Live, welcome also. I hope that you are having a great day today. And we do encourage everyone to state or comment on the chat box or on the comment section where you are watching from, so we can acknowledge you and recognize you later on. So again, welcome to our Kaigangan Biodiversity webinar series, and this webinar happens once or twice a month. So do like and follow us on Facebook so you'll be notified when we have future announcements of our online activities. Okay. So I know that all of us are excited for our topics today, and this webinar episode is very special because we have two speakers that will be joining us for today. So before we begin with our presentations, may I remind everyone that this webinar is recorded. And with this, please take note of the following rules for our decorum. So kindly keep your microphones muted, and especially when our speaker is presenting. And also, if you have questions or clarifications during the presentations, please type in your questions through the chat box of the FB Live comment section or through our chat box here at Zoom, and we will acknowledge the questions during our open forum. And the link to the quiz will be provided later on. This will also serve as your attendance. And of course, after the quiz, we will have the evaluation link. So please note that the link to the evaluation form will be provided after submitting the quiz. So it will be seen at the confirmation of your submission via Google form. And the e-certificates will be sent to you after completing the evaluation form. Also, please make sure that the email address that you will indicate is valid and correct, because this will be the basis for sending the e-certificates. So now that we have set some of the ground rules, let's proceed with our webinar. Okay. Before we turn over to our first guest speaker for today, I'd like to take a moment to introduce him. Our first guest speaker is Dr. Ronilo Jose Flores, and he is currently an associate professor at the Institute of Biological Sciences, serving as an associate dean and international relations officer of the UPLB Graduate School. He holds a PhD in engineering with specialization in advanced science and biotechnology from Osaka University. His research spans microbial ecology, aquatic pathogens, and planetary health. He leads several nationally funded projects in these areas. He is also a registered microbiologist of the Philippine Academy for Microbiology and Microbiology Section Chair of the National Research Council of the Philippines Biological Sciences Division. Dr. Flores is also active in scientific organizations, international academic collaborations, and public science engagement through media and the arts. So ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let's all welcome Dr. Flores to talk about unlocking microbial mysteries, the use of modern technologies in studying microbes across land and seascapes.
Very much. Maraming pong salamat for inviting me to be part of the Kaigangan Biodiversity webinar series today. And I'll be sharing with you some of the experiences or some of the things that we have done and we have been doing, and some of the future initiatives that our group will do to unlock microbial mysteries. And we'll share with you the use of some modern technologies in trying to elucidate or study microbes that are present across land and seascapes. So my name is O'Neill, and I'm from the Institute of Biological Sciences. So microbiology, well, we all know that it deals with anything that is too small to be seen by the naked eye. And you see this representation here. It's the cartoon that I like showing my students. This just shows you that microbes are indeed everywhere. So right now, if you touch your, let's say, computer sets, if you touch your nose, no, chances are you are now exposed to microbes that are either autochthonous to yourself or are just happen to be present in the surface of your laptop. So the point here is that microbes are really just about anywhere, no? Kung saan kayo tumingin, there will be microbes, pero hindi nyo nakikita. So you have in the city, you're exposed to pollution, to microbes. In the forest as well, if you go to if you hike, no, if you're fond of going to the forest, meron din dyan, of course, in the ocean, and even in extreme places, such as the Arctic, mga bulkan sa ilalim ng dagat. So, lahat ito, so all of these places, harbor microorganisms. And these microorganisms, can either be harmful or beneficial to human society. So in soil, you have soil microbes that actually dictate or so a major factor in determining the health of the soil. So there have been a lot of studies that show that a diverse microbial community would support a healthier environment. So soil microbes, or even if we go to, let's say, rivers, lakes, streams, and even seas, there are lots of microscopic organisms there that would be either bacteria, green algae, diatoms, dinoflagellates, which can be free living, that can also be attached to certain um, organisms there. It can be also be benthic, such as the amoebas, nematodes and worms. So all of these things, are microscopic in nature. So you see them there. Hindi lang doon, you can also see them in, well, not see them, but they can also be present in the air, in the atmosphere, that we all are exposed to, right? So you have airborne microorganisms that may be launched airborne by aerosolization, of different of the soil, of the water, and these are disseminated by wind, by precipitation. Even ourselves, even the human body, would harbor organisms, which can be natural or what call autochthonous populations, or this can be infective. Kunyari, may infection ka, then you harbor a the causative agent, which can be either, let's say, a virus or bacteria. But our natural self, ourselves, would have natural microflora. So meron tayo, especially pinakauso ngayon, would be your digestive tract or the gut microbiome, which is that's been seen to regulate disease as well as even our mental health. So there are lots of studies that would show the importance of an intact gut microbiota. Not just that, meron din sa mouth, meron din sa teeth, even your nose would have your Staphylococcus aureus. So these are microbes that live within other organisms. We are really a meta-organism when we think of it. So it shows you that the organism is made up of other organisms. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina, it has been shown that when you have good consortia of microorganisms, or the microbiome is rich, it tends to support health. Health microbiome, good health, not just for humans, but even for plants. Whereas if you have, let's say, a microbiome poor and very badly exposed individual or organism, then you have fragile health. So this is something that we always take a look at, the things that we do in our research, the balance, the interactions, and how do these things affect health in general? Because as you know, we push a One Health planetary health approach in the things that we do in our research. Okay, so microbes are everywhere. So again, so it can be a virus, bacteria, protists, fungi, or algae. Mainly pa to na sabi may archaea pa tayo But these are microscopic organisms, and these organisms may be useful or harmful. So these are some of the examples of bacteria or organisms or bacteria that you encounter in your everyday life, such as Staph aureus, also E. coli, Pseudomonas, Streptococcus, Lactobacillus. You have yeasts. For example, if you have eaten this morning, let's say pandesal, you know that they use yeast to make your pandesal, no? Use Saccharomyces cerevisiae. And so therefore, when we talk about benefits we get from these microbes, so the reason why we are very excited in exploring them, wherever they are, aside from their potentials to, let's say, inflict harm, to prevent pandemics, to prevent harm, to find cure, they also have a lot of potentials. As I've said, these can be sources of medicine or cure, food additives such as your pigments, colorants, cosmetics. For a safe life, as I've said earlier, if these are pathogens or that can inflict danger, but they can pose risk to human society. The taxonomic markers, toxicity and biosensing assays, these are your biotechnological, biomedical applications, industrial applications, ecological applications, such as, let's say, um, um, bioremediation, generally for a safe environment and for a safe life. And, there are places, that we investigate, that we go to investigate or to isolate these organisms. Even in poop, dog drool, and snot, there would be good germs, that are lurking around in these very weird, gross places. So really, microorganisms, uh, being microscopic as they are, hindi naman sila nakikita agad, or it's really a microcosm of mysteries, right? Bakit sila nandun? Why do they thrive in extreme environments? Why do they behave in a way that they do? Why do they inflict harm? How can they be used as, a way for development? So these are some questions that, that we aim to answer. For example, this is just some from the book Microcosm. Yeah, heritability of the microbes, Napapasa ba yung microbiome? The slide earlier was on cyanobacteria, on toxins that can inhibit or elicit um, immunological response in people. You have antimicrobial resistance, which is, by the way, was declared by WHO as one of the next big things in terms of public health. So it's a question, it's a thing that we need to really take a look at. It's a mystery, or even as plain as, let's say, phages. These are viruses that attack bacteria. Not as plain, but as simple as a virus attaching to the host. No, the mechanism isn't always as simple as it used to be. So there are certain new mechanisms that are being proposed. Paano kaya natin pinapatay yung specific bacterial host? And of course, as the roles of microbes in biogeochemical cycles and maintaining the balance in the ecosystem, Or how do fungi or other organisms, microbes, inflict risks, and diseases when it comes to our crops, this is a very, very significant thing, especially in the Philippines, where we do a lot of agriculture, the post-harvest, control and prevention of loss, due to, microorganisms. And we do that using a battery of different techniques, let's say, for example, if you want to profile, perturb, or take a look at, let's say, the human intestine, when we talk about the gut, the pipeline of analysis would include a lot of different things, from collection to sample processing. You do your serial dilution method, you homogenize your sample, You label using, if you have a target, let's say if you have a target organism or a target glycan or a target protein, you have a sorter plate. So this would be an ELISA reader. For non-targeted, you have your spread plate, you have your petri dishes, etc., etc. So you use a polyphasic approach also to identifying microbes. And for identification, you use modern techniques such as, let's say, the MALDI-TOF. Later, I'll show you that we've used this before. You have a sequencer. Then you have your softwares that you use for you to characterize your OTUs, your ASVs, no? Typically your taxonomic analysis pipeline, and even your storage uh, would entail a lot of new technologies that may be present in the Philippines, maybe not. So but we try our best to have access to these. And of course, the birth of omics, no, which has been around for a few decades already, which really is characterization of the totality of a particular biomolecule, and and the effects that they have to, let's say, um, the organism. So this would, entail, let's say, genomics, transcriptomics, proteomics, fluxomics, metabolics. In my case, I do genomics, proteomics, and even glycomics, uh, the glycans of these different organisms that would, you know, allow us to take a look into the biology of these um, microorganisms. No, yeah. So human disease, maybe use it for, let's say, prediction, precision diagnostics, and treatment. No, as well as characterization, identification, etc., etc. So it's really um, the analysis of the totality of these different biomolecules and their effect on the biology. And yeah, that would help us unravel certain things about this organism. So marami pa yan. So there are various omics, and we do hope that you also enroll in our omics courses. There are some omics courses in UPLB, whether it's a special topics or yung mga bagong binubuong courses, no? So if you take, so this is just the same as the last slide. You'd use different omics techniques in order to profile the biology or to analyze the biology of a certain organism. So we use all of these things, sequencing, transcriptomics, etc., etc. So these are just some pictures that would show these things. Now, let me give you some concrete examples of things, of technologies that we have been utilizing. So it starts with my stint at the International Center for Biotechnology. So before going to IC Biotech in Japan, where I stayed for about 7 years, no, I started my career here in UPLB, and now I'm still in UPLB. No, and then when I went there, it opened me up to the different wonderful world of biotechnology, and I apply all these techniques here, in the things that I'm doing in the Philippines today. So this was me a few bouts ago with my professor and my lab mates. So this was my home for 7 years. I actually just recently came back from a trip to the ICB last week, where we discussed certain things about our research and stuff. So there I spent my time doing some work, but my main research was on yeasts that are Basidiomycetes, which are not so very well studied in the world. Pinaka well studied yeast would be your Ascomycetes, your Candidas, your Saccharomyces. But these yeast, are very important because these are dimorphic yeast. They are found in almost any environment there is, and they are less studied. So their glycans and their roles are not so much um, understood. So this is what I tried to elucidate when I was still there, the mechanism by which a certain glycosylation is made in certain extreme and non-extreme yeast. So let's start with one. So I studied a lot of these 10. So one is from, this is Sympodium mycopsis paphiopedile. This was isolated from an orchid, a sleeper orchid called Paphiopedilum primulinum. I think we do have this in the Philippines. So for those our botanists out there, I think meron tayo nito, and naka-isolate ng yeast dito, no, ng nectar from the orchid. So we did a lot of profiling of their fractions of their molecules. We even did mass spectrometry, and we found novel structures, no, novel glycan structures that allowed us to discover certain enzymes, no, that are undiscovered. No? So these would be uh, very important for unlocking the use of these putative enzymes for glycan analysis. So we also looked at the prospect on diversity. So certain organisms, certain groups of organisms would have their own glycan structure. For yeast, you have your super monocylated yeast. For insects, you have your bisecting fucose here, the triangle. For animals, you have your bisecting glycans for plants and humans. So iba-iba po kada group. And this would also now have implications in treatment. Kasi glycosylation is also a way by which diseases can be detected nowadays and can be treated. So, for example, for certain types of cancer, certain types of glycosylation exist. So this now becomes, or and right now it's being done, used as targets for therapeutics. So yeah. So that's how glycosylation or the glycome is really important. And last year they just launched, I think 2 years ago, the Human Glycome Project, in Japan, where they're trying to profile the glycome of each disease known to man and see whether there are unique signatures. Basically, these are signatures that can be used to early detect these diseases or can be used as therapeutic targets or detection targets. No? Yeah. But here, and that is anchored on diversity, no, of these organisms or diversity of exposure. So of course, we've also took a look at the use of this glycosylation in classification. No? But we only analyzed about 50 or 70 of these. It's still ongoing. We're still trying to profile certain other yeast for this. Basically, um, no, in that particular research, which we still do right now, we unravel the structural glycans analysis, the structures, their biological roles, and to gain new knowledge and to harbor to access their biotechnological potential. And we use certain things. So this was our I think this is the LCMS MS, that this tandem HPLC, tandem MS. We do have a lot of HPLCs, and this is on the right side would be an NMR setup in order to analytically determine the different structures. And when you do your analysis, when you have your analysis, you can now um, elucidate or help you elucidate the biological roles of this. When I came back to the Philippines, we started our different kinds of research. So this is just to give you a glimpse of what we have been doing. So for caves, we do have well, I'm part of the NYSER caves as well as and then two other cave projects that came after the NYSER caves. It's under the Museum of Natural History. So it's a subterranean environment, of course, you know that, and it can be a good place to get your actinomycetes or for drug discovery. We used a polyphasic workflow approach in order to determine the potential new species, the potential producers of unique compounds and multi-drug resistance. species. Of course, this would have industrial importance, I've said before, as a source of bioactive metabolites. So we use bat guano, we use cave guano, and anything that is inside the cave. The seminal paper on bat guano cave, the Kapal-Yurisa cave in Mabini, Pangasinan, was really very instrumental in pushing forward this kind of research in the Philippines. It is authored by Dr. Maria De Leon, who is our program leader. Um, and they do have potential in our research. This would be, they would have a lot of uh, streptomyces and actinomyces, which are good sources of potential uh, microorganisms. One as fertilizer, we've been looking at that, and their antimicrobial activity, and other organisms that would have um, possible applications. So recently, I mean last year, we promotion na rin to, no? We published one of these papers. Well, we do have some in the pipeline, but this would be just showing you that the microbial communities of bats, no, in the Philippines, one of the caves that we studied, where we see a lot of different organisms, which dominated by firmicutes, no, merong mga Campylobacterota, as you see here in Jaguri, ang dami niyang Campylobacter would be your organisms which can be potentially pathogenic. So here we do have another research now in Kinopkuban. So this is my RA Jack. So we've seen a lot of different putative organisms as well. We used Malditoff in order to um, provide a putative identification of these isolates. No, this is the EXS 2600 by ZyBio, where it profiles, it gives you some sort of a fingerprint, amount of your mass charge ratio of different metabolites or different compounds that are there. It analyzes it against a database and provides a an identification. No? But we also couple this with 16S or 18S sequencing. No? So that's for the lakes. We also do 7 lakes, or the lakes or the water research using the Planetary Health One Health approach. So, for example, for Mojica, for the 7 lakes of San Pablo, which is just about an hour away from here, we have been doing monitoring for the past 3-4 years, and we have seen pathogens, no, here in this lake. So we do a lot of monitoring of fish, of water. We isolated certain organisms there, and we've used, of course, your DNA and some omics approaches in order to profile the different organisms. No, we used, of course, Sanger and Illumina before. We have not used Nanopore yet for this sequencing, but we will be having a try in our next run. Of course, we, aside from profiling the microorganisms there, we also tried to link the water quality with human activity. So we use a lot of mapping and databasing. We use GIS, we use satellite imaging in order to profile the landscape, for these microorganisms, for this research. For instance, for some Sampaloc Lake, no, we do have if you can see here, itong blue, this is a model of coliform spread or coliform levels in the lake. So using modeling QGIS. Also using that, we were able to plot or map the different levels of activities that around it. So this is very important for us to understand where the hotspots are, so that interventions will be crafted later. So right now we do have another project that seeks to help the community, the LGU, find solutions to these different problems in terms of water quality, and the basis of that largely depend on the data that we get, and the data that we get would largely depend on the of course a lot of things, but it may also depend, largely on the technology that we use in order to unearth or unravel this mystery, this the microbes that are present there. We also do AMR research. So just last week or 2 weeks ago, one of our papers just came out. It's the first report of AMR Pseudomonas in tilapia aquaculture. We did a lot of antimicrobial testing using the traditional Kirby Bauer method. And of course, meron na tayong mga automated methods such as the sensitizer and certain equipment. I failed to put it here, but we've used that in this research. We have been seeing the same trend as with other lakes. No? So it's really, AMR is going to be really there. And we've just started another research on exposomics, really the totality of exposure of an organism and its effect on the biology. So the exposome, really the totality of contact, as I've said a while ago. So the physical, social, and biological. So it's really on bangus, because one of the challenges of the bangus industry is that we have to increase the population as well as, or the production sustainably. But there are also reports that there are bangus that are that die due to certain health issues. So we want to address that issue and to hopefully be able to find the algorithm or find the combination of environmental exposure that would allow for the bangus to thrive and for production to be sustainable. So it just started. It involves a lot of people. We try to profile the exposures that the bangus experiences using a polyphasic, multi-pronged omics approach in doing so. So we'll do genomics, yung kanina pinakita ko, genomics, transcriptomics, conventional analysis, modeling. We do mathematics. We profile the ecotoxins using all of these technologies. We've just formalized our group. It's called the Me4PH Group, Meta-Organism, Microbial Ecology, Exposomics, Ecoinformatics, Engagement for Planetary Health. The framework is really of operations, really from planetary health, from concept to where there's science, to community, to communication, to change. Di ko na nilagay, so we do also research and extension and capacity building for communities that we engage with. Me4PH also stands for Me for Philippines, or Ako para sa Pilipinas. We do this for the Philippines, and I'm just glad that I came back home to the Philippines and did not give up on research. Yeah. So we do thank all of our partners, past and current and future. There are more things that we will be doing in the next few years in terms of projects. We do have biodecomposition projects, we have bioplastic project. Of course, the caves will be there, the lakes will be there. Yeah, towards healing planet, healthy ecosystems across lands and seas. And hopefully we will also have seagrass and our coastals. It's really a rich relief approach, in order to profile the microbes and their impact to human life. So again, thank you pa rin sa mga partners. Working together is really key. Of course, we collaborate as microbiologists, as ecologists, as biologists, with everybody. Agriculture worker, economists, epidemiologists, foresters, scientists, policymakers. Really the heart of planetary health, and even One Health will be collaborating, communicating, and coordinating, because we do not know everything. And you can not do all the good the world needs, but the world needs all the good you can do. So that with this, I end my talk today. And let's collaborate. So you can just shoot me an email, rdflores@up.edu.ph if you want to know more of the things that we have been doing in our group. You're also welcome to visit our office. Our dry lab is at the Eco-Informatics Lab at the back of IBS, and our wet lab is at room 309 of the Wing C of IBS. Marami pong salamat sa inyong lahat and magandang umaga.
Thank you very much, Dr. Flores, for that very informative talk and for sharing with our participants and viewers all the researches and scientific initiatives and collaborations that you have so far. And I am very confident that our participants have gained valuable insights from your presentation. So as we move to the next segment, I'd like to invite everyone to our open forum, and let me call on Assistant Professor Lani Masungsong to moderate the open forum.
Yan. Thank you very much, Miss Anne. Again, thank you very much, Sir O'Neill. So for the participants, please type your questions in our chat box and I will read them for you. So while you are doing so, let me read some questions we have from our pre-registration. Sir O'Neill?
Hi po, magandang araw.
Hi, sir. Good morning po. Again, thank you very much for accepting our invitation. Ayan. Sir, for our first question, what ethical considerations must be addressed in bioprospecting microbial genes and products from unique or protected land and marine biomes?
Thank you, ma'am. It's a very important question, especially if we do our research about nature in general, no? Kailangan natin ng mga iba't ibang permits. So don't forget to apply for, ang dami niyan, no? You have the GP, the Gadicious Permit. Then kapag protected area, may special permit pa yan. And then when you're transporting your samples, whether it be, plant, animal sample, soil sample, lahat ng sample, may transport permit pa yan. Alam na alam niyo yan sa kaigangan sa inyong pagsasampling. So there are lots of procedures to be taken into consideration as part of due diligence when we do our research. At di pa yung nagtatapos doon sa pagsasampling. You have your GP, you have your transport permit. Kapag may IP pa, if you're doing of course, you have to engage the community. If it's an IP, then you have, and if you conduct interviews and you have human subjects, of course, there is also your ethics review or ethics certification. Luckily, we do have that in UPLB. Pero yung kapag indigenous group, you also have to do the NCIP then, no? May iba pang permit. So it's really the landscape of permission is seems to be endless, but these are necessary things that we need to do. Of course, kapag magta-travel naman abroad, you have your material transfers agreement, you have your MTH, you have your bioprospecting if animals, of course, you have your IACU. We do have IACU committee na rin sa UPLB. Ay, hindi lang yun, kasi sometimes need din natin ng permit from BAI, no, from Bureau of Animal Industry. If we're doing, especially for example, yung aming tilapia, yung bangus, we do ask for permission then to to do our research. So madami, and I hope and even yung mga biosafety considerations, yung mga biosafety permits natin, if we're handling pathogens, if we're handling stuff like that. So hopefully, if you're doing your research, you just ask your research center or research office if you already have all of these permissions in place. So yun lang po. So marami siya pero these are necessary permissions for us to do our research.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much po. Hindi ko na isa-isahin. Marami talaga. Pero if love natin mag-research, sumunod na lang po tayo. Ano po, sir? So, Thank you, sir, for that answer. So for our second question, since wala pa ako nakikita mag-type, again, for our participants, kindly type your questions in our chat box and I will read them for you. Sir, another question po. Can you share some best practices for overcoming common challenges in this industry? And how do you stay up to date with the latest developments and trends in your field?
Okay, so dalawa yung tanong. So first yung common challenges. There's so many challenges as you know. Una, from concept to from conceptualization to closing ng research. It's just sometimes nagjo-joke ako sa lab. Every day is filled every day is troubleshooting day. It seems like every day there's a new trouble. But I guess that's part of the challenges of being, in love with research, and with not just research, but really knowledge in general. You try to troubleshoot things. So yung mga challenges, of course, alam natin dahil nasa government tayo, you have the processes that are the processes that are part of being, in the government, like yung mga procedures and stuff. The only way to do it is really just make a great team, explain to your team and to your members that these are the processes, these are the hurdles that we will be facing. Of course, adaptability. And I always and then lift yourselves up, because if there are challenges, the only thing you can do is face these challenges and try to find ways to become productive in spite of the challenges. And yung pangalawa, how do I keep up to date doon sa mga latest trend? My former professor in Japan, Dr. Fujiyama, instilled to us, we were required to read at least 5 papers a week, and we were required to send him abstracts or the synthesis of the papers. Somehow I managed to stick to that routine. So I tried, pero hindi 5 kasi masyadong busy. So I tried to at least read at at least 2 per week of a new paper in the field. So I get updated. Also try to attend as many conferences as possible, because you would know what is being done by my colleagues and how do we collaborate, how do I learn from them, and how, seek knowledge where there is. So yun lang yung ano ko doon. Maging excited tayong magbasa ng mga bagong bagay. So yun lang po.
Okay, sir. Thank you. In short, for the processes, magbaon ng maraming pasensya. Okay po.
Yes.
So for our next question, someone is raising his hand. Sige, Sir Steven Jantano Milendres.
Good morning po, ma'am. Good morning po, sir. I'm audible po from your end po.
Yes
Okay
po,
po.
from Region 7 and Region 12.
Yes po, from Region 12, from the province of Sultan Kudarat, sir. I'm very interested po in terms of biodiversity, because I am a graduate of Bachelor of Science in Biology. So my thesis is all about also biodiversity, but focuses on the mushrooms po. But I'm planning also to have in the next level on the DNA of the mushrooms po. So in the further study. But anyways po, sir, while eating this study or this your project, sir, what comes in your mind, sir? Or ano po yung nag-udyok sa inyo to do this study until nagkaroon po kayo ng connections, nagkaroon po kayo ng tie-ups from international researchers. So, in other words, ano po yung nag-udyok sa inyo to push this study po for the benefit of the viewers po? Kasi I'm very curious because um, it is a mix of biotechnology, genetics, and parang papasok na dito yung biophysics, genomics, etc., etc. So yun po. Ano po yung nag-udyok sa inyo to have this project, and kaya pa ba ninyo po na makipagsabayan in the near future po? In the near future trends po? Yun po, sir. Thank you po.
Thank you, Steven, for that wonderful question. Um, Ngayon lang ako natanong noon, ano nag-joke. I guess, I, paano ba? I just kept an open mind. So when I was younger, I wanted to become a doctor, but it did not, I mean, medical doctor, but it did not go through. So what I did was to become a teacher. I thought I was going to be just a teacher for a year para lang magpahinga. But then again, it opened me up to a plethora or a gamut of possibilities in terms of what biology can offer. Nung una, I thought biology was just a stepping stone for me to get into med school. But when it did not happen, because of personal choice, I chose to rest for a year when gap year was not really uso pa in the Philippines. No? Sa Amerika lang nag-uso yun dati, yung mga gap year. But I decided to rest, but at the same time, I got recruited by IBS. And it opened me up more to what biology is really about. And from then on, I just kept an open mind, seeking what can improve my current skill set, no? Seeking knowledge. So with that, from micro, napunta ako sa ecology. So I kind of like, I had a marriage of the two. And then napunta ako sa Japan, then napunta naman ako sa biotech. As you access all of this information, all of this knowledge, you also try as much as possible to think of ways to marry them and to link them. So hindi ko alam na systems thinking yon during that time. But now looking back, it's really working in systems, no? It's really recognizing the fact that um everything is interconnected, no? So yung comsci connected yan sa math, yung math connected yan dun sa physics, yung physics connected sa chemistry, yung chemistry connected sa biology. So it's really that, no, recognizing that there is still room for improvement or keeping an open mind, learning, don't stop learning kahit nag-PhD ka na, ilang postdoc na nakuha mo, it's really you have to consider yourself as a student of nature. That's what I always tell my student. I am a student of nature, and so therefore learning does not stop when we achieve certain things in our life. So that's keeping me open, keeping me energized, I guess, no, and excited in trying to see the different linkages or interconnections between different fields. But of course, also staying true with what I really am, like microbes, biotech, and even, of course, the intent of planetary health to really affect change in the local communities that we serve and support. I hope that answers a bit of the question. And if you have more questions, just email me or FB me, okay? Thank you.
Okay, sir, thank you. I hope, Sir Steven, mas na-inspire ka kay Doc Flores. Okay. So we have here a question, sir. We have interns from UP Tacloban, and they are in our plant systematics laboratory, and they have this question, sir. What do you think are the areas of microbial research that are most in need of funding or attention, especially here in the Philippines, which is known to house rich microbial diversity, biodiversity?
Yeah. So aside from, of course, the typical answer would be trying to know what organisms are there, but half 50% on parang kabila, on the kabilang side of the coin is really after knowing what diversity is and what diversity we have, how can we ensure that this biodiversity are protected at the same time harness their beneficial potential. So it's really funding on both ends, on the basic side of things and on the application. Kasi there are the enormous potentials of this of the things that they can provide in terms of ecosystem services, in terms of technology, in terms of new products, in terms of enzymes, in terms of medicine, is
is underscoreable. It's really rich. Unfortunately, we don't have it yet. I mean, we have it in the Philippines, but it needs more attention so that we can really feel the people can really feel the benefits of these technological advancements. Thank you po.
And thank you, sir, for that. So I think we have here another question. Sorry po, hindi na natin entertain lahat for the
Ma'am
allotted
Annie,
time.
if you can capture the questions and then I'll just answer it, I'll just type it and then we can send it to them
Yes, sir.
for me to
Okay po.
adjust
So
the other.
just another one, sir. From Jean Claude Espana. So what are the most exciting future applications of microbial ecology research in the field of medicine, agriculture, and environmental sustainability?
Yeah, because there only about 1% of microbes have been discovered, culturable microbes. And with the advent of, let's say, micrometagenomics, we unearth certain organisms, microorganisms that have not been, characterized or cultivated. And this 99% would be a potential source of medicine, of plant growth promoting enzymes, of sustainable building sustainable technologies. So the future is big for microbial ecology, but I think we have to invest still on the ways we can really harness this future. It's really exciting. Now we see a conciliation and reconciliation between, let's say, technologies that are already existent and nature-based solutions. So that's really exciting in the field of microbial ecology. So I encourage everybody to nag-recruit to get into ecology, no? Kahit ano namang ecology, kahit na but of course with the main purpose of really using this knowledge for the benefit of the society in general. Yun lang.
Okay, sir. So last question na raw, sir.
Ay,
Last.
meron pa. Okay.
Okay po. So from Sir John Torres, so good morning, Dr. Flores. Several research which do involve collection of microorganisms and finding some according to their result are multi-drug resistant strains, as they claimed after their research without proper permits that you have mentioned. However, they continue to be published or sometimes even recognized. How do we address this problem if the institutions where they belong are not even aware, or even the ethics committee of these institutions are not mindful or knowledgeable about this? Do we have a national governing body to at least regulate this research misconducts?
That's a very nice question. In fact, fora such as this, yung mga webinars and stuff, would actually bring light into certain issues. This is just but one of the issues. Correct. We really do need to adhere to ethical considerations, to permits, to permissions, because that's due diligence on the part of the researcher, and not just on the part of the researcher, but also part of the institution that they represent. So it would be nice if institutions, SUCs, research institutions would have committees in place, committees that are capable of really monitoring and on an extent or giving advice, no? And to how to secure certain permits, no? Parang checklist. In UPLB, we do that already, especially in our proposals, no? Pinapatik, prior art, no? Is there prior art? Is there ethical considerations? Would gender considerations? So yun, tinitingnan yun ng ating research office. How we wish that all SUCs and all research institutions would be that. So I guess my advice would be go to the admin and ask, when are we going to have our ethics committee? When are we going to have our IACO committee? So that we don't perpetuate the culture of doing research that is not complete, that doesn't have due diligence. So I guess that's it. We address it by taking action, by asking, no? Yun lang naman yun. You ask your research officers, you ask your chancellors, you ask the people who are policymakers doon sa inyo if we do already have these kinds of things in place. National governing body to regulate, I don't think so, but to regulate and police, ay hindi to pwede, hindi to ganyan. But I guess what we can do is start from our very own culture, the culture of your research group, the culture of your lab. Establish a culture that observes due diligence, that observes ethics in the way we conduct our research. It's all about culture first. Sa atin muna. And then, hopefully, people in other labs and learn from other labs as well. Now, it would be nice if you go to other labs and see, oh, what do they do here? Paano ba ginagawa? So, picking up the best lessons and trying to do it and integrate it to our own little groups, our own personal self, the way we do things is a good place to start when we do good research.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. So, for other questions, you can just type it in our chat box and Dr. Flores will just answer directly in our chat box if you want.
Yes po.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much po again
Thank
for
you.
that very engaging and lively discussion. So, I will give again the floor to Miss Anne. Sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc O'Neill and Ma'am Lani, for our open forum and for answering the questions. Sir O'Neill, let's now proceed to the awarding of certificate for our guest speaker. So let me read the citations. This certificate of appreciation is awarded to Dr. Ronilo Jose D. Flores for serving as a resource speaker during the webinar presentation entitled Unlocking Microbial Mysteries, the Use of Modern Technologies in Studying Microbes Across Land and Seascapes of the Kaigangan Biodiversity webinar series held on the 10th of June 2025 via Zoom. Signed, Dr. Maria Celeste and Banatikla Hilario, Conserve Kaigangan Project Leader. Thank you very much, Doc O'Neill. Let's all give a virtual clap to Doc O'Neill for his presentation and all the answers that has provided to us, and all the researchers, the young researchers who have been inspired to study more on microbiology and ecology. Okay. So again, as I have mentioned earlier, this webinar episode today is a very distinct one as we have a second speaker. So let me introduce to you our next speaker for today. Dr. Karl Marx A. Quiazon is a professor and director of the Freshwater Aquaculture Center at Central Luzon State University. He specializes in fish parasitology and aquaculture health, with advanced degrees from the University of Tokyo and fellowships in the United States and Japan. Recognized as an outstanding young scientist in 2014, he has discovered new parasite species and developed diagnostic tools for aquaculture diseases. He currently leads a DOST-GIA-funded program to improve the quality of tilapia fingerlings through better broodstock management and breeding, aiming to boost sustainability in Philippine aquaculture. Ladies and gentlemen, the current president of the Japan Society for the Promotion of Science, or JSPS, Alumni Association of the Philippines, Dr. Karl Marx A. Quiazon. Let's all welcome Dr. Quiazon to talk about unlocking research horizons, opportunities through the JSPS Fellowship Program.
To speak with you today. Hello, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I would like to introduce JSPS and our international programs. JSPS is one of the funding agencies of Japan, established in 1932. Annual budget is about $2.0 billion. We support curiosity-driven research activities. It means, in principle, we don't decide any specific theme in advance, and we leave it to each individual researcher's curiosity. We call it in other words a bottom-up approach, so we cover all fields of not only the natural sciences but also of the humanities and social sciences. To realize this policy, we invite applications through open calls, and we work hard to ensure fairness in its review process through peer review. This slide shows our international programs. Our international programs focus on mobilizing researchers and building broad and strong international collaborative networks. These programs have 5 pillars, as shown here, and today I will introduce the programs shown in red. These pie charts show the number of researchers exchanged through our international programs. In fiscal year 2019, more than 3,000 foreign researchers were invited to Japan, including 43 from Philippines, and more than 4,600 Japanese researchers were sent abroad, including 69 to Philippines, through our international programs. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, the numbers were significantly reduced in fiscal year 2020 and 2021. But in fiscal year 2022, it has been recovering to the level approaching as before the pandemic. JSPS has been carrying out bilateral programs in the form of joint research projects and seminars based on MOU for more than 50 years. This slide shows our basic scheme for carrying out bilateral collaboration. Under this scheme, JSPS and its counterpart funding agencies jointly select projects and provide matching funds. We have 5 counterpart agencies with MOU in ASEAN. In fiscal year 2024, we founded 10 new research projects out of 93 applications. This program lasts for 1 to 3 years, so we have 31 ongoing projects in this fiscal year. JSPS offers another bilateral program without MOU, called Open Partnership Joint Projects and Seminars. In this scheme, JSPS supports researchers in Japan, and the counterpart researchers are not required but expected to secure their own matching funds from any funding agencies. JSPS offers another bilateral program without MOU, called Open Partnership Joint Projects and Seminars. In this scheme, JSPS supports researchers in Japan, and the counterpart researchers are not required but expected to secure their own matching funds from any funding agencies. This slide shows our international program for multilateral research collaboration, the Core-to-Core program. Application of this project requires the participation of 2 or more partner countries. It means Japan, 1 ASEAN country, and at least 1 other country. This slide shows ongoing multilateral collaboration programs between ASEAN countries and Japan in fiscal year 2024. 21 programs are now operated under this Core-to-Core program in ASEAN. This slide shows our fellowship programs for inviting foreign researchers to Japan. JSPS has a variety of invitation fellowship programs for overseas researchers, including PhD students and mid-career researchers. As you can see, despite of COVID-19 pandemic, postdoctoral fellows from Philippines are invited every year to Japan through this program. This slide shows our fellowship programs for inviting foreign researchers to Japan. JSPS has a variety of invitation fellowship programs for overseas researchers, including PhD students and mid-career researchers. As you can see, despite of COVID-19 pandemic, postdoctoral fellows from Philippines are invited every year to Japan through this program. This slide shows our fellowship programs for inviting foreign researchers to Japan. JSPS has a variety of invitation fellowship programs for overseas researchers, including PhD students and mid-career researchers. As you can see, despite of COVID-19 pandemic, postdoctoral fellows from Philippines are invited every year to Japan through this program. JSPS supports the activities of alumni associations of former fellows who have participated in JSPS fellowship programs. We offer Bridge Fellowship Program by which overseas researchers who participated in a JSPS fellowship program in Japan and joined an alumni association after returning their home country are provided opportunities to revisit Japan. We now have more than 8,000 members in 20 alumni associations. JSPS supports the activities of alumni associations of former fellows who have participated in JSPS fellowship programs. We offer Bridge Fellowship Program by which overseas researchers who participated in a JSPS fellowship program in Japan and joined an alumni association after returning their home country are provided opportunities to revisit Japan. We now have more than 8,000 members in 20 alumni associations. JSPS supports the activities of alumni associations of former fellows who have participated in JSPS fellowship programs. We offer Bridge Fellowship Program by which overseas researchers who participated in a JSPS fellowship program in Japan and joined an alumni association after returning their home country are provided opportunities to revisit Japan. We now have more than 8,000 members in 20 alumni associations. Hello, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Karl Marx, for providing us a recorded video featuring a comprehensive discussion of the fellowship programs offered by JSPS. So right now, I would like to invite everyone again to our open forum, and let me call on once again Ma'am Lani to moderate the open forum.
Ayan, thank you very much again, Miss Anne. Ako po ulit. Sir Karl Marx, Dr. Kiason.
Yes, ma'am. Speaking.
Good morning, sir. Buti
Yes,
na
morning.
may signal po kayo.
Sorry, medyo nasa Mindanao ako ngayon at hopefully very hopeful na mayroong signal dito. Yes,
Opo.
ma'am. So for any comments and suggestions, so sa mga interested na mag-avail ng GSPS program as presented, actually yung recording kanina is came from GSPS Bangkok. Ito usually ang binibigay nila to orient ang ating mga audience who would like to avail for the GSPS program. So for those who are interested and have questions, so feel free to ask ngayon po.
Okay po, sir. Sir, meron po tayo ditong questions from our pre-registration. So
Yes,
first question, sir, how can graduate students in the Philippines leverage the JSPS fellowship to expand their research horizons?
Okay, so graduate students. Okay. Usually itong sa GSPS program as presented meron tayong mga postdoctoral fellowship. So yung postdoctoral fellowship, yun yung sa mga nakagraduate na ng PhD pero base sa merong mga certain years lang na duration na dapat makatapos ka lang ng gantong years to qualify for the postdoctoral fellowship. Now, for graduate students, I think kung kayo mga MS at saka PhD students, I think this is the good thing or time for you to link with the Japanese professor. Okay? Like for example, kung kayo si scholar, meron tayong tinatawag na parang sandwich or you can do your experiment abroad. So this is the good time for you to link with Japanese professor. At dito, alam mo naman kasi mga Japanese, once they saw your potential na gaano ka magtrabaho, yung opportunities will come. Okay? They will usually offer you na if you would like, we can invite you to come again in Japan as a GSPS postdoc or fellow. Mga ganyan yan eh. Kaya ito ang best time for you to really ipakita nyo ang inyong sigasig on your research ethics, ang inyong behavior because this is the time for you to really expand your network. Okay? So yun ang aking tip sa mga graduate students pa lang, mga MS at PhD students.
Okay, sir. Thank you for that.
Unfortunately, yung ating GSPS Ron Paco, ito kasi yung dati kasi pagka 35 years old and above ka na, sa Mambusyo kasi hanggang 35 years old. Pero pag more than 35 years old, ito yung track nila to take this PhD program. Pero itong Ron Paco nito sa ngayon ay tinanggal na nila. So wala na yung Ron Paco program.
Okay po, sir. Noted po. Sir, another question po. Can LGU employees avail of JSPS fellowship program?
LGU employees, well,
Local government units po.
mga LGU,
Opo.
Kasi more on research undertakings ito eh.
Yes, sir.
Pwedeng kasi meron tayong mga iba't ibang mga joint program, like for example yung core to core program, pero yon from alam may connection sila from other university from other countries, Asian countries, pero meron kasing program na like for example dito sa Philippines ay isang researcher sa Philippines and then a Japanese researcher, nag-uusap sila sa research topic nila and then they would request for funding itong Philippine side, usually sa DOST, itong Japanese site sa GSPS. Mga ganun eh. Pero kung sa LGU siya, depende sa nature ng work niya. Karaniwan kasi sa mga researchers ito eh.
Okay.
Kaya kung more on hindi research oriented, I think hindi papasok ang kwan. Pero pagka halimbawa, itong isang LGU ay they have a program or research undertakings and then they can link with a university. Mas gusto kasi usually sa GSPS medyo connected ka sa university. Yun ang kwan dyan kasi more on research. So this LGU can link to the university with a certain topic of interest and then yon to pwedeng mailink sa GSPS sa mga grants natin.
Okay po, sir. Sir, another question po. So, which study or research topics are prioritized by the JSPS for fellow?
Dito, actually, walang specific, hindi lang sa biology, hindi lang sa science, meron din sa mga non-science, meron lang mga specific mga field na hindi pinaprioritize. Makikita mo sa website yun. I think nandyan yung sa military aspect. May mga point, may mga field lang. Pero generally, kung tayo ay nasa science at non-sciences, political science, social science, mga sciences, lahat yan, wala silang pinipili. Okay. Ang ganda dito sa GSPS, hindi katulad sa Pilipinas. Sa Pilipinas, to have these mga grants or mga projects to be approved, usually nakafocus tayo sa applied research. Doon, mga basic research, pinopondohan nila yan. Applied research, pinopondohan nila yan. Sa Pilipinas, pagka mga basic research, very limited ang approval of funding. Pero doon sa GSPS, any from basic to applied research.
Okay, sir. Sir, meron po tayo ditong participant na nag-raise ng hand. Okay, Sir Steven Milendres, the floor is yours.
Hi, ma'am. Good morning again. Good morning, Sir Carl. Audible po?
Yes,
From
sir.
your end po, sir. Opo, sir. Bali, sir, I'm curious lang po yung kanina po, but you stated na po na only for the MS and PhD lamang po. Kasi I'm wondering if pwede po siya sa mga undergraduate schools po, like fourth year po or what. So, eto na lang po, sir. Basically, basic question and basic ano na lang po is, from the benefit of the viewers po dito sa Zoom po, ano po yung requirements na po na ihanda po? May requirements ba from the school level to the school level until sa kanyo po sa GSPS po?
Yes, actually ito, lalo na kung undergrad ka, mga master students o PhD, actually ang napaka-importanting dapat nyo ihanda ay ang sarili ninyo. Yun lang yan. Walang sinisino-sino yan na porket recommended ka halimbawa ng university na to o hindi katulad na pag nirekomenda ka ni politiko, ma-approve doon, hindi. It's your credential. Kaya since undergraduate ka pa lang, I suggest if you are looking into being a GSPS fellow in the future, pursue your studies, master's, PhD, pero at this level sa ngayon kasi pwede na makapag-link sa mga Japanese universities. Yon. Kasi ang titingnan dito to apply for this grant is your credential. Publication. Yan, publication, mga projects na ginawa mo, yung credential as a scientist o as a researcher. Tandaan mo, just to give you an idea, sa Philippines, pag hiningan ka ng CB, napakaraming ilalagay dyan. Pati kung minsan mga seminar, etc., ilalagay dyan. Pero pag sa Japan, hiningan ka ng CB, ang makikita lang dyan, education, publication. So ibig sabihin, ganun lang kakuan. More on pagka tinignan ang isang applicant, titignan lang actually diyan. Kung minsan yung kung saan ka nag-graduate, hindi basihan porket nag-graduate ka halimbawa sa number 1 university sa Japan or sa Amerika, hindi point yun eh. Titignan parati is you as a researcher sa publication.
Wait, so meaning, sir, kailangan before you enter this program, kailangan po is your study must publish po before entering it.
Yes. Oo.
Okay, sir.
Pero sa ngayon, hindi lang basta publication kasi medyo humihigpit ang selection ngayon eh. Hindi katulad ng panahon ng mga magulang natin o mga lolo ninyo, pagka high school graduate nakakakuha na ng trabaho, di ba? Ngayon, kumisan college graduate ka na, kumisan MS graduate, medyo hirap pang makahanap ng trabaho. Kaya dito, in terms of publication, hindi lang basta-basta publication. Kasi sa ngayon, marami mga type ng publication pero be careful about predatory. So, titignan dyan yung saan mo pinablish. So, ito bang pinablish mo, baka kahit na napakaraming publication, predatory yan or mababa ang quality. So, basically, yung rank sa'yo is hindi ganun kaganda. So, at the end of the day, titignan pa rin nila is yung quality mo, qualification mo as a good researcher na pwede nilang pondohan at i-accept as a fellow.
Sige, sir. Thank you po, sir. And mag-ingat po kayo kung
Thank you
saan
po.
po kayo ngayon. Thank you po.
Yes, good luck, good luck.
Ayan, thank you very much po, sir. Any other question for Sir Carl? Yung mga interested po to have JSPS fellowship grants. Ayan. If we don't have any questions, I don't see anything na po sa ating chat box. So I will give the floor to Miss Anne again. Thank you po, Sir Carl.
Thank you po.
Okay, thank you very much po, Dr. Karl Marx, for sharing your experiences as a JSPS Fellow and for motivating us to embrace this opportunity and indeed the potential research initiatives that we can explore through this fellowship program. Of course, let us not forget yung mga na pinpoint ni Dr. Karl Marx that it will be our publications, our research efforts that will speak for us para tayo ay matanggap or ma-accept po sa fellowship program. So indeed, excellence pa din po, no? So, okay, so let me just read po this certificate to award the certificate to Dr. Karl Marx. The University of the Philippines, Los Baños award the Certificate of Appreciation is awarded to Dr. Karl Marx Quiazon for serving as the resource speaker during the webinar presentation entitled Unlocking Research Horizons, Opportunities Through the JSPS Fellowship Program of the Kaigangan Biodiversity Webinar Series held 10 June 2025 via Zoom. Signed, Dr. Maria Celeste and Banatikla Hilario, Conserve Kaigangan Project Leader. Again, let's all give a virtual clap to Dr. Karl Marx. Dr. Karl Marx, thank you for your time. Kahit po nasa fieldwork kayo, you made sure that you'll be able to come in this webinar and answer the questions of our viewers and our participants. So, thank you once again. Okay, so for our next announcement, we're going to have our new webinar series again next month on July 15, 2025, again 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. via Zoom. We are going to have our new speaker, Dr. Florence Roy Salvania, the Director of Research Publication Services Office of the University of Southern Mindanao, to present a presentation titled Preliminary Assessment of Trees in Colombio, Sultan Kudarat. Okay, so again from Sultan Kudarat, I hope we can see Sir Stephen again next month to join us on our webinar. And we really encourage you to share this webinar series that we have every month. So it's also an encouragement for us na nagko-conduct ng webinar series to share, to disseminate all the information, and of course yung mga guest speakers natin as they present their passion, their expertise, and everything that they're doing in their research initiatives. Okay, so may I invite everyone to open up their camera so we can have a photo documentation of our webinar this time. Okay. Sige. Okay. So, sige, smile lang po tayong lahat so everyone can be seen sa ating screen. So for those naman po na hindi makapag-open ng kanilang screen, you can also react or click that heart button, that clap button, so that we'll know that you are present and active po sa ating webinar. Okay, let's all smile. Slide 1, 1, 2, 3. Slide 2, 1, 2, 3. Slide 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right. So, that's it for today. And again, for our quiz link, it's now provided on our chat box. And also, may I request my colleagues to also share sa ating Facebook Live so that our Facebook viewers can also avail of the e-certificate. So again, a quiz will be given to you. So before taking the evaluation form, you will have to take the quiz first. And the reminder again, the evaluation form will be provided after you have submitted the quiz. So upon seeing the confirmation that your quiz has been recorded, you will see the link to the evaluation form. And as you evaluate, please include or write the correct and valid email address, and of course your name. Kindly type in correctly your name, as this will be automatically sent to you, yung e-certificate po natin. So once again, thank you very much for joining us on our webinar series for this month of June. I hope that you have been motivated, encouraged to do more research, more publications. Of course, this will not only benefit us, but will benefit our nation. So we do hope that you have been inspired and do collaborate. I believe that Dr. O'Neill and Dr. Karl Marx has invited us also for future collaborations. So that's it for today. Thank you very much, and I hope you had a great day.
Samar Island is the third largest island in the Philippines and has one of the most extensive forest over limestone ecosystems in the country. This ecosystem is home to a wide array of uniquely adapted flora and fauna. Samar Island is known to be one of the centers of botanical diversity in the Philippines and has been nominated as a UNESCO World Natural Heritage Site for its exceptional natural beauty and precious biodiversity. For these reasons, Conserve Kaigangan, a biodiversity research program, was established. Kaigangan is a Samar local word that means forest over limestone. Our research program's mission is to assess and conserve the biodiversity in Samar Island's forest over limestone towards its sustainable management. One of our program's projects is the assessment of biodiversity and community structure in forest over limestone ecosystems. This component of our research aims to determine plant diversity and vegetation structure in various habitat types in forests over limestone, to determine animal diversity associated with forest over limestone, to identify functional classification of vegetation with its associated animal diversity, and to analyze the environmental factors influencing the prevailing structure of the biota. We conducted a comprehensive biodiversity assessment of forests over limestone in the municipalities of Paranas, Taft, and Giwan with remarkable findings. A combined total of 71 plant species were recorded from these municipalities, with at least 3 tree species classified as vulnerable based on the DENR updated national list of threatened Philippine plants. A total of 52 terrestrial vertebrate animal species were also recorded, including 5 amphibian species, 15 reptile species, 20 bird species, and 12 mammal species with conservation statuses ranging from threatened to endangered and critically endangered, based on the DENR updated national list of threatened Philippine fauna. This knowledge will empower our stakeholders in these areas to make appropriate research-based conservation efforts for the protection of these ecosystems that harbor an assemblage of rare, endemic, and economically important flora and fauna. Through this program, people will be equipped with knowledge on forest over limestone biodiversity, including the ecosystem services that it can offer to the community. We at Conserve Kaigangan continue to further raise awareness and capacitate national and local government agencies, especially local communities living in and around Samars Kaigangan.